Hing is another file format in which you can optimize images for the web. There are two kinds of ping available in Photoshop. One is ping 8, which is often a good alternative to GIF for optimizing solid color illustrations like this one. And then there's also ping 24, which is sometimes useful for optimizing a graphic set on a transparent background. This PSD source file is an illustration made up of mostly solid colors, so it's a good candidate for either GIF or ping. The only way to know which is best is to try both out in the Save for Web and Devices window, which I'll open now. In the 2-Up tab, I have the window on the right selected. I'm going to go to the Preset menu, and from there I'm going to choose Ping 8 128 Dithered. The options in the Preset menu are collections of the other optimization settings in this column. I sometimes use the presets to get started optimizing, and then I'll tweak individual settings in the controls below. So I'll choose Ping 8 128 Dithered, and that sets the format of this preview to Ping 8. In order to get the file size of this Ping 8 preview down, I'm going to reduce the number of colors. I'll choose 8 colors, and I'm going to disable Dither. And notice, by the way, that the controls for Ping 8 are much like the controls for GIF, which I covered in an earlier movie. So that brought the file size of this Ping 8 preview down to 10.07 kilobytes. I'd like to compare the file size and the appearance of this Ping preview with a comparable GIF preview. So I'm going to select the window on the left, which is currently set to display the original source file. And from the Preset menu, instead of Original, I'll choose GIF 128 Dithered. And that sets the format of this preview to GIF. As I did with the Ping, I'll set the number of colors to 8, and I'll disable diffusion. Now with similar settings, I see no real difference between the appearance of the Ping and the GIF. Comparing the file sizes, I see that the Ping 8 file size is slightly smaller than the GIF file size. Before I choose one of these over the other, there's one more thing that I can do to the GIF that I can't do to the Ping 8, and that is to add some lossy compression to the GIF. So with the GIF preview selected, over in the controls, I'll go to the lossy field, and I'll increase that lossy slider. Now I don't want to go too far, or I get a result like this. The image starts to break up. So I usually just use a bit of lossy compression. In this case, maybe something around, say, 16. That did bring the file size of the GIF down slightly, but not enough to beat out the Ping. That, coupled with the fact that GIF is arguably a proprietary format owned by the company that developed the format years ago, I would probably go with Ping in this case, but it really is a close call. And the lesson to take from this is that when you have an image made up of areas of solid color like this one, it's worth trying both Ping 8 and GIF optimization settings in the Save for Web and Devices window, because there are times when a Ping will look just as good as a GIF but be smaller in file size. Now in both a GIF and a Ping 8, the number of colors is limited to a maximum of 256 colors, and neither of these formats support varying levels of transparency. In both a GIF and a Ping 8, every pixel is either completely transparent or completely opaque, a subject I'll explain in more detail in the chapter on transparency in web graphics. Fortunately, there's another format that suffers neither of those drawbacks, and that's Ping 24, a 24-bit flavor of the Ping format that generates images that can have millions of colors, much like JPEGs, and can display multiple levels of transparency, which makes for soft edges where a graphic is surrounded by transparent pixels. To show you that, I'm going to cancel out of the Save for Web and Devices window and go to another image that I have open here in Photoshop. Here is a PSD source file containing a gradient which is continuous in tone and therefore contains lots of transition colors. Also, this graphic is surrounded by transparent pixels, represented by the gray and white checkerboard, and the graphic has a really soft edge. I'm going to zoom in using the shortcut Command+ on the Mac or Control+ on the PC, so that you can see that the soft edge here is made up of pixels of varying levels of transparency. When the graphic is viewed at 100%, that makes the edge look soft and smooth. I'd like to be able to retain those semi-transparent edge pixels when I convert this file from a PSD file to a format that I can display on the web. And I'd like to keep the gradient looking as good as it can here in the graphic. That all sounds like a job for Ping 24. So I'm going to take this image into the Save for Web and Devices window, where on the left side, my preview happens to be set at the moment to GIF, with just 8 colors and no dither. And notice that transparency is checked to retain the gray and white checkerboard here, and the matte field is set to none. As you can see, this image is not going to do well optimized as a GIF. There's banding in the gradient, and the edges of the graphic look stair-stepped rather than soft and smooth. I can try changing this to ping 8, but I still have the same sorry results. So now I'll try changing format to ping 24. Now the gradient looks really good, and if I zoom in, you can see that the edges of the graphic are semi-transparent, just like they are in the original PSD source file. So ping 24 does a really nice job with the appearance of the optimized graphic. But the downside of ping 24 in this case, as in many cases, is that the file size is pretty big. It's over 120 kilobytes here, which depending on my web design may be more than I can use. Another potential drawback of ping 24 is that transparency in a ping 24 is not recognized uniformly by all web browsers. For example, the legacy web browser Internet Explorer 6, which some people still use, although that particular problem is disappearing as newer browsers come on the market that do recognize transparency in ping 24. So if you do have an image like this one that has a soft edge against a transparent background and or continuous tone, as in a gradient, you can try ping 24. But in many cases, rather than settle for a large file that's not going to be seen the same way in all web browsers, you may be better off trying the tricks that I'll show you for optimizing transparent GIFs, which I'll be covering in the later chapter on transparency.